And this, politicians are guilty of this. And this, again, I'm not gonna mince words the way a lot of politicians do.
Don't. Go ahead.
The economy is shit. I mean, it endlessly bothers me that people are like, oh, these lazy, entitled millennials living in their parents' basements. I'm like, the rent is too damn high. They can't afford to live it because we stopped paying people enough money. We broke the connection between productivity and pay. And tons of the housing prices went up, healthcare prices went up. So our pay has literally been stagnant for 40 years. It has not been increasing. 40 years of decline in the real economy. A lot of people are genuinely anxious. They've seen their kids not be able to buy houses. They've seen their savings evaporate. They've seen pay stagnate. They've seen the cost of healthcare climb steadily. I have to look my students in the eyes and tell them, you're screwed. My generation, Gen X, is the first one in American history not to do as well as its parents' generation, to do a little bit worse. We're worse off than the boomers are. The millennials are worse off than Gen X. Gen Z is worse off than the millennials. Our potential, our economic potential, how we're going to do. So I'm looking at people and saying, look, you're going to college and you're going to walk out of here $100 grand in debt, carrying a mortgage around your neck. You're not going to get a job that's going to pay you well because they're going to say, master's required $12 an hour. Right. And you're going to be stuck living with your parents. And that, honestly, pisses me off. Because it's completely artificial. I mean, when people talk about, the stock market's doing great and unemployment is low, therefore the economy is good. That is a lie. Ignore CNN, ignore Fox, ignore MSNBC. When they say the economy is good, they are lying to you. The real economy is the money in our hands that we spend and that circulates. The real economy has been in decline for 40 years. We've lost 20% of the middle class. In the last 15 years, $1 trillion has been lost by the bottom 50% of this country. Like literally hoovered out of our wallets. Right. People have not recovered from the 2008 recession. That is a problem. And that's what we need to pay attention to, not the damn stock market. Right. And seeing that almost no one in politics is willing to talk about these issues, so they get worse year after year. And there's this kind of like bipartisan consensus to ignore the big problems and just pander to people's interests of the moment. Right. I said, heck with that. I got to get in and see if we can actually change the discussions. I want to change the conversation and get people talking about the real issues.
Now, Andrew Yang endorsed you. Mm-hmm. And he talks about UBI. Do you think that would help any of the things that you just referred to in the sense of putting money out there, it's in our hands and we have something that's constantly coming in?
UBI would definitely help there. And if there's more money in your pocket, okay, just use you and I, right?
I would love to, yes.
Are you filthy rich?
I'm almost there, but not quite.
I'm not filthy rich.
No, I'm not filthy rich at all.
I gotta watch my budget. I gotta figure out what I've got there, right?
For sure.
If you give me a bit more money, what am I gonna do with it? I won't spend it. Because there are things that I need that I've been putting off for years. Yeah. My boots are old. My belt is old. I don't replace things. If you give me more money, I'll spend it. Well, if I spend it, what happens? I'm stimulating the small businesses. I'm affecting the entire supply chain. More money circulates. That's the real economy. And if that happens, then the growth rate goes up. And if the growth rate goes up, it again, honestly does not matter what the federal government is spending.
Does not matter what the federal government is spending. Does not matter what the federal government is spending.
You need to get it through your thick skull.
Right. And people don't understand that. We got a lot of people in Congress that walk in to Congress and they try to approach the federal government as if it were their household budget or their small business. Because they're not walking in like they haven't studied actual economics and state policy. They know how their budget works.
They're penny pitching based off of where
so
their
you're
mind
thinking,
is.
This is gonna be expensive. This I can't afford it. I gotta figure out raise taxes. Right. Because as soon as you bring these things up, the first thing people mention is cost.
Right.
Oh, this is cost. We're gonna have tons of debt. No, we won't. I mean, honestly, the federal debt is basically a spook. It's not real.
Yeah, as somebody that's not really as informed as, politicians and people like that, even somebody that's for all of these things, I always think about that's probably gonna cost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I always think that.
And honestly, that is a significant mistake, and it's honestly a misunderstanding of economics. And we've got decades of empirical evidence showing it's a complete mistake. I mean, the federal government's been spending more than it takes in for decades now, and inflation rates are still below where they should be. They're so clearly, producing those treasuries has not caused the problem. And it shouldn't. As long as money actually circulates in the real economy, what it's doing doesn't affect that, it producing the cash to do these things. The whole point is to get it circulating. And if you do things like UBI or Medicare for All, what you're doing is effectively it works out to a massive middle and working class tax cut. Your healthcare costs go way down, you just got a massive raise. And if you have UBI, if I lose my job, I don't have to worry about losing my house. I can find another job and not have to take whatever they'll give me. Right. It's having to take whatever crumbs people will offer you that keeps us weak. And it keeps the economy down as well because our pay stays low. If people have that cushion, they're able to negotiate better, pay will actually increase. We will completely abolish poverty. The purpose of our tax revenue isn't to pay for things. It isn't to afford the different programs. The purpose of taxation is to stimulate the real economy. Okay. It gets us to think in terms of like using the money in the first place. So like cutting taxes on the rich slows growth and damages the real economy. The purpose of higher taxes on the rich is not to raise money to pay for a project. The purpose of high taxes on the rich is to stimulate investment in the real economy. This is one of the things that I'm hoping, and it's an interesting challenge, we'll see how this works for a few years. Yeah. I'm hoping being in politics, there's an opportunity to try and talk about these issues, to try and like shake up the nonsense, because I'm listening to politicians talking all the time, and they're all speaking gibberish. They don't understand the history. People are constantly talking about Mideast or European politics. They completely misunderstand what's happening in the world. They don't understand the economy, but they're in charge of running the whole damn thing.